Tourmaline. It's found all over the world. It's cut into gems. It's made into jewelry. And it's collected in its natural mineral state as it comes out of the ground, just like you see it here. It comes red, green, blue, pink, purple, just about any color of the rainbow. They come short and stubby, long and delicate, on matrix, or even as single crystals. The variety of tourmalines that exist must surely make it the most diverse species of the mineral world, and each locality makes a slightly different tourmaline. Knowledgeable people can just look at a tourmaline and know where it's from. And while each locality imparts its own unique fingerprint on the stone, there is one place that's famous not only for the outstanding quality of tourmalines, but also for the variety found in one locale. That place is called the Pederneiras Mine in Minas Gerais, Brazil. And this is the story.
My name is José de Oliveira Rocha. My nickname is Deca. It was given to me by my parents and my family, and it worked out well for me. Because Deca is a lot easier to say than José de Oliveira Rocha.
And that's Deca. He's the owner of the land, and he owns the entire mountainside. He owns the mine, and he's the patriarch of Santa Maria do Suaçuí, which loosely translates to Saint Mary of the Sweet River. He's about 90 plus years old. I think he's around 93, and he's in great health and claims that he can still bite clean through a chicken bone. He's very proud of that. He's a wonderful man and a real fun character in the scene of Pederneiras.
This mine here, just behind me, was uncovered by floods. The entire hillside was a coffee plantation from top to bottom. Back then, coffee was worth a lot of money. It started to climb in 1942, as the height of the coffee trade has just begun. And Mr. Sebastián Ferreira, who lived over there just behind me in the house that you can see, owned the land at the time. His brother, Pacheco, came to visit him one day, and on one night there were very strong rains that caused landslides and created plenty of damage. After the rains, Pacheco went to the river to wash his face, since there was no piped water to the houses then. While Pacheco was cleaning and washing his face, he found some plates of mica that had washed down in the flooding. Mica was worth something then. In the nearby town of Poia, there was a big mica trade. Pacheco was from Poia, and so he said, "Brother, you have great riches there. Just blocks of mica I found down at the water. Down there at the stream we call Pederneiras. It worth lots of money." So Pacheco returned to Poia with the mica he found, and the people saw the value and bought it right away. They asked, "Where did you find this mica?" He said, "I found it there at Pederneiras. I know the place very well." So the traders from Poia came to Pederneiras and found Mr. Sebastián. They said, "We heard that the mica was found here, and you know mica has a good value, much better than a crop of coffee." So they offered him a deal to work the land for mica, and they said, "It will cost you nothing, you will make lots of money. Money will come to your hands, and you do nothing at all." He was not sure about the mica, but in the end he went along with it, and he took the deal. They showed up with trucks and people to work and went about digging for mica and distributed what they found evenly amongst them. And the money began to come in. Sebastian was pleased, and they even pulled up some good coffee plants to dig for mica. And the drop in mica value came. It came, and that was that. It was over. But Zeca Indo was someone who really motivated me. He pushed me to buy the land from Sebastian. He was a cook of Pacheco, and he told me Deca. I remember vividly that after the drop in mica prices, Pacheco filled up a crate with colored stones, and then some of red stones started coming out, and he filled up another crate. He filled up 2 crates, one of red stones, one of blue stones. At the time, the stones had a low economic value, but I thought it meant something, and so I took a chance and I bought the land.
My name is Adeclides Pereira. I came here in 1985. I came to work in the mine here, behind me, for over 11 years. We left on March 12, 1995. That's 11 years of strained meaning. The stone production was constant. For over 5 years, we did not stop producing stones. We found lots of rubellite in the mine, plenty of it, big crystals, so big they split in half. It was red, very red. There must be over 500 to 600 kilos. We mined and mined stones. Some of it changed, and it became collector material in certain areas of the mine. All in different colors, green and yellows, and the quantity of crystal was a lot. Exactly how much I'm not sure, but it was a lot. In 3 big pockets, there must be near 3 tons of just crystals. Just crystals without matrix was 3 tons. Pieces with matrix were another 3 tons. And there were big pieces. Tourmaline on albite and feldspar. It all came out. All this material was just lying in the pocket. The crystals just poured out, and the matrix pieces were pried out and had a great combinations of feldspar and with albite, and of course, tourmaline. Then the productions began to slow down almost to nothing. So Dilo, the man who was running the mine, gave the order to blow up the work site. Use dynamite, he said, to blast the tunnels and close the mine. And that was the end. The mine was closed. Ever since I left, I always had hopes to come back here, because I felt the mine has a great future. No, I don't think. I'm sure it does. Then one day, I was approached by M. Pederneira Ltd. to come back and work the mine again. And so I took the opportunity, and here we are again working the mine. It's been 5 straight years of work just to clean and prepare the mine after all the blasting so many years ago. And here we are at the beginning of a whole new future.
So in 1999, the first pocket was found that sparked the new era here at Pederneiras. And it was found by a local miner who actually used to work in the lower tunnel, in Dilo's tunnel. And he was walking around. He has a farm right here at Pederneiras at the mining site. And he was walking around in the woods and up the mountain, and up 40 meters he found a little outcrop, and he decided to begin to mine it. And after a few months of mining and going in about 10 meters, they encountered this first pocket. And this pocket was something extraordinary. I mean, if you see the material that came out from it, you instantly recognize it. It is not something that can be forgotten easily. It's beautiful stuff. The pocket has a wonderful story. It was found. Unfortunately, this pocket was likely collapsed, and which is typical for 90% of all the pockets that are found at Pedionera. And yet the remnants are some of the finest tourmalines in the world, what was actually preserved for collectors to enjoy. And it was stolen by miners, we believe. Dada does not have any claim to having dug it out, and the pocket was then brought to Valadares by some intermediary dealer who had a relationship with St. Clair Fonseca, who is affectionately known to his friends and family, and actually to most people, as KK. And KK immediately recognized the importance of the pocket, not only from a collecting standpoint, which is what most mineral collectors now recognize the pocket for, but from a gem value, from a lapidary value, as the crystals of tourmaline were flawless and an incredible chrome green. What made the pocket really spectacular was something unique that I've only seen here in Pedionera on 2 occasions, this being the first, is lepidolite. Now, lepidolite normally is common and found in pegmatites all around the world, but I had never seen, and I don't think anyone has ever seen, these elongated crystals, really individual crystals up to almost an inch in length and about the thickness of a pencil, in groups and irradiating from central areas, and the color was just the most vibrant, beautiful rose pink to red color. I mean, it was striking, this combination of contrast with this chrome green tourmaline, and then just right on the crystals and surrounding the crystals, this beautiful lepidolite. Lepidolite in just bursts of color, and I mean, it was just like a 1-2 punch. You saw this color and you were just like blown away. So KK, he gets the pocket brought to him in Valadares. He immediately recognizes the importance and he buys the pocket, held it there for a week or so, and then packed it and carried it with him to Tucson. By the time KK had taken off to go to Tucson, people knew here in Valadares, or in Brazil, that this pocket was something special. And so a local dealer named Pierre Lavelle, French foreign dealer living here in Brazil, and he had a very close relationship with a very well-known dealer in the United States, Wayne Thompson. And Wayne and Pierre had probably a decade-long relationship, maybe even longer, of where Pierre would scout out different finds in Brazil. He would purchase them and supply them to Wayne. And so Pierre immediately grabbed a flight and flew from Brazil straight to Phoenix. And so he waited in Phoenix for KK to arrive at the airport. And KK arrived at the airport, and of course, to his surprise, as soon as he comes out of baggage claim, there's Pierre Lavelle. And he was shocked. He was like, "What are you doing here? What's going on?" And Pierre Lavelle begins to tell him, "I know you have a pocket of tourmaline. I know it's supposed to be fantastic. I'm here to buy it." And so they met somewhere in the airport. They found a convenient location, and KK opened up the pocket, showed it to Pierre Lavelle, and Pierre bought it on the spot. Within a half an hour, Pierre left the airport and drove down to Wayne Thompson's house and laid the material out on the table. And Wayne's eyes exploded. When he saw this material, he knew right away that this was something really special. It had not been seen before. And I would imagine within a 3-day span prior to the Tucson show, that pocket was dispersed and collectors ate it up like candy. I mean, some of the pieces are just phenomenal as far as their impact and the color and the contrast with that lepidolite made something so special. When you see it, when you see the pieces that came out, you're awestruck. And so is the rest of the world. It was an amazing find.
After KK bought the pocket, he went to United States to sell at the Tucson show. And he sold his merchandise to Pierre Lavelle. And when he got at the show, KK told to his friend Miranda he bought a beautiful lot of tourmaline, and he make a good profit in it. So Miranda called his friend Tomichi in Valadares and asked about where this tourmaline is producing right now. He heard is Santa Rosa mine, and Tomichi is very close friend of mine, and he knows I own Santa Rosa mine, and immediately he called me to ask a question about that pocket. And I answered to him, I don't know yet, Tomichi. So I went to the mine to look with around if it produced something like that there. And it's not there. So I came back and told Tomichi, it's not there, Tomichi. Must be in some place else. So Tomichi started to look around, and in a few days, he found out was in another place. Somebody told Tomichi was in a Pedernera. So he went to the Pedernera to see each place it is. For his surprise, he met his friend Eustáquio Neves at the Pedernera, because Eustáquio Neves was a partner with Dada. So they talk, and they start some kind of partnership with Eustáquio and Dada. So Tomichi went back to Valadares and told me the history and invited me, if I want, to be a partner with them. So we made a partnership. Miranda came from the States. We sit on the table. That time I have a new compressor. I put the compressor in a partnership. We became partners. That's the beginning, the era of Dada Tonio. The first pocket we hit was the citrine pocket. And that time, all those partners was very excited to find something. So when when they call us, they found a pocket, everybody came, all those partners came to the mine to see the pocket. And the pocket was big, that big, maybe 4 meters long, and a lot of quartz and citrine. And we found a good material, but the two good ones was the albite with some tourmaline in the bottom, and that longer, beautiful, beautiful citrine. And the other one was 2 big citrines, complete clean, and like a cathedral in the top, perfect, no damage. So everybody's happy, but no tourmaline.
The best pieces from this pocket, this quartz pocket, there were 2. There were many smaller pieces, and the quality of the crystals, they had this very nice hint of citrine. They weren't very, very orangey or yellow. They just had a beautiful hint of citrine, it was nicer than some of the darker citrine quartz that comes from throughout Brazil and around the world, because they had lots of life. And combining that just hint of color with exceptionally sharp prismatic crystals they didn't have interruptions on the prism faces or on the termination faces. They were nice and flat, so there wasn't a lot of this windowing or multi-growth on the crystal faces with outrageous luster. Bright, bright, bright. These crystals danced in a light. You'd put a light anywhere, and there were 2 really marvelous examples. One of them a little bit better than the other, and I actually was lucky enough to buy those 2 pieces when I came on my first trip to Brazil in 2000. The pocket produced maybe half a ton of quartz in all varying degrees. And again, it was dumb luck what survived. They blasted into the pocket, they found the pocket, they blasted to remove material from the pocket using rudimentary tools, and only by dumb luck were these two incredible specimens preserved the way they were. One of them was a plate about as big as I'm gesturing, probably about 2 feet wide, 2 feet across, and about 4 or 5 inches thick, of just beautiful, slightly undulating Clevelandite with this bluish hue and little tiny tourmalines coming out here and there, maybe 4 or 5 crystals. Right in the center of this was a crystal about, probably 6 or 7 inches across and about 20 to 22 inches tall. And it just came up like this perfect, beautiful skyscraper coming right out of a white matrix, and had this light citrine color, and it was absolutely perfect. It didn't have a ding, a nick, a chip on it anywhere. This was one of the finest quartz specimens I'd seen in my life to that day, and it's one of the finest quartz specimens I've seen another decade later. So I was very happy to get that piece. The other piece that came in that pocket that I also bought was 2 quartzes that were very much like smokestacks. They were side by side, sort of in the foreground of a matrix of albite that went behind it. And each crystal was about 18 inches tall and about 4 to 5 inches in diameter. Absolutely water clear. And these two had a little bit of stepping as they went up, very much like on a church or on a cathedral, with these little steps in and out. But beautiful luster, no damage, just wonderful examples of crystal quartz. 2 of my favorite pieces, and they have a very special meaning to me because it was the very first purchase I made from the Paidionera group, so to speak, the Paidionera partnership, and from this mine. And it brought me into, it was the beginning of my working with Paidionera material, which has dramatically changed my life. This experience of working with Paidionera, experiencing these pockets now for a decade, I look back and I just wish I could rewind the clock and do it all over again. It was in 2000, right during the Tucson show. There's a dealer named Michel Jacta, and he's a mid-range dealer. He's French, lives in France. His wife is Brazilian, and he travels to and from Brazil. And he was traveling from there and dealing in Brazilian minerals for probably 30 years. And he and I struck up a conversation during the Tucson show, and we started talking about Brazil. And he told me, you know, I can get you material from Brazil. There's great things happening there. And so my interest, which had been sort of skirted to the side, and I was concentrating on these other countries, started to get piqued a little bit. And I said, well, okay, if you can put me in contact with someone, or you really think there's something special coming from Brazil, I'm interested to do something with you. I'd love to see what you can put me in contact with. So Michel Jacta goes to Brazil. He's there for like a month, and he stays there. And on his way back, he arrives in New York. And he didn't call me once during his whole absence, didn't tell me about anything. And he arrives and says to me, yeah, there was some great productions, but you know, there was no way to buy it. There was brokers in the way, but I have some photos to show you. And so he starts showing me photos, and boom, he whips out this photo of Sharon Stone. They call it Sharon Stone because it was so beautiful. And at that time in Brazil, Sharon Stone was a very iconic female figure for beauty and whatnot. And so they named this specimen after her, Sharon Stone. And they call it, obviously, the Sharon Stone pocket. And this specimen was, you know, totally like nothing I'd ever seen before from anywhere. And, you know, I hadn't had much experience in 2000, nearly as much as I have now with tourmaline, with that species. But I'd seen what I'd seen from, you know, the blue cap pocket. I'd seen what I'd seen about from Jonas. I've seen what was coming out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I didn't see anything like this before. And so my eyes were just like, whoa, I got to get this rock. I've got to get this specimen. And I said, how could you leave this piece in Brazil, Michel? You've got to go back. I was call Brazil now. And he looked at me like I had 5 heads. He was like, I've got to go home. My wife is waiting for me. I've been away for a month or 2 months, whatever it was that he was there in Brazil. He said, I can't go back to Brazil now. I was like, well, I got to go. And he said, what do you mean you got to go? I said, call the guy on the phone. So we're in my mother's house. I was still living there. I was only 26 years old. And I remember picking up the phone in the kitchen, dialing the telephone number, and he put me in contact with Zé Menezes, who has become one of my great friends, and he's also my partner in Pedinera. And I went and immediately went to the Brazilian consulate in New York, applied for a Brazilian visa. I got a visa within, I think, 24 to 48 hours. I bought a plane ticket, and shoof, off I went, just blind into the wild blue yonder. Michel Jactad did not want to accompany me because he needed to get home, and I just wanted to get on spot. And so I finally found myself in Valadares after a long drive from Belo Horizonte, and I found myself in Zé Menezes' office, and the pieces were all wrapped up. And I said to them, well, you know, I would really love to see the pieces. And they said, well, we'd really love to show you, but we can't. The pieces are already sold. And I said, oh my God, this is terrible. This is, I'm all this way. Can't I even see them? No, you can't see them. They actually showed me Sharon Stone, but they showed it to me in a ball of paper about this big. And they put the piece on the table, and it was wrapped, and it was sealed, and it was signed with the names of the partners so that they could prove to the owner who had purchased the pocket that, that it wasn't, you know, that no one had seen it since they had sealed it together. And I sat there and I just looked at this ball, and I knew what was inside, and I was like, why can't I? It was just the biggest tease in the world. Ironically, the brokers and the dealers who had purchased the Sharon Stone pocket, they ignored the quartz pocket, because the quartz pocket was sort of less important. And obviously it was at the time. I mean, it was only quartz. But these 2 quartz specimens were sitting in this room at Zé Menezes' office, and they were just sort of on the sides. And I had been looking at them while pacing around the table 20 times, trying to convince them to show me the piece, and that they wouldn't show me. And I said, well, you know, guys, I am really interested in working with this mine. I can tell that this is something unique. This doesn't happen every day. And I had this gut feeling that I wanted to get involved. And so I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Let's do some business here. Are these quartz pieces sold? And I assumed that they were. And they said, no. And I said, okay, great. Let's negotiate for these 2 quartz pieces. And so I bought the 2 quartz pieces, and I said, I really want next shot at the next pocket that you guys find. I mean, I'm here, I'm ready to go, I have money, I'm your man. I want to work with you, I want to do something. And they said, well, we can't really do something because the group who bought this last pocket, well, they're getting preference. And I was like, oh man, this is tough. And said, but then Zé said something to me. He says, but you know what we're going to do? From the next pocket we hit, we're going to hold one great piece for you. And we're just going to hold that one piece for me. And I said, all right, great. I said, there's my foot in the door.
After we found, you know, few pockets, we figured out we need somebody to help us sell this material, because it was a lot of material. And everybody has experience in cut stones, not in the specimens. In that time, I received a call from United States of Daniel Trinchillo. He wants to see the merchandise. So I thought to him, welcome. So he came in 2 days. I was surprised because I expected him come in 2-3 weeks. So he came to my office, and we started to talk, and he wants to buy the tourmalines. But the tourmalines, we already sold to another person, and the person sealed the lot and I cannot show Daniel Trinchillo. So I told Danny, I'm sorry, this is already gone. And we have a chance to next pocket to show you. In that time, he saw 2 quartz was on the table, was citrine, very nice, and he told me, okay, if I don't get the tourmalines, I want to buy those quartz. So he asked the price, and we make the deal with those quartz. So he's happy, not really happy, because he wants the tourmalines, and we cannot sell to him that time. So after the deal, he told me, I don't need this quartz right now. You can keep it here, and when you found another pocket, I came and I take the quartz. I did this because if I give you my card, of course you're gonna remember. But if I buy the piece and leave the money with you, you're gonna remember for sure. The next pocket we found was the Proud Pocket. The Proud Pocket was a bicolor tourmaline. Was a big quantity of crystals and quartz and matrix. And we keep one good piece, I mean big piece, because we thought it's good to cut. And we sold to the pocket to another dealer. So after we sold, we called Daniel Trinchillo, and I told him, Daniel, we are proud to keep our word to show a piece. So we agreed, and we did a partnership with Daniel.
And right after Sharon Stone Pocket came the Proud Pocket. And I get a call, Daniel, we hit a pocket, come to Brazil. Okay, so packed up, got on a plane, arrived in Brazil about a few days later, and I came into Valadares, and I went again to Zé Menezes' office. And I believe at that time they had just started an office for the company, for M. Pedinera, which was the firm. And they had the pocket there. And they brought me in and they said, Daniel, we're keeping our word, and we're happy that we're doing it, and we're proud to show you this wonderful specimen. And I said, well, can I see the whole pocket? And they said, well, there's a few pieces out in the other room. We'll show you quickly. So they brought me around the room, and at that time I looked at the pieces and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't buy these, can I? And they were like, nope, they're all sold. It's all gone. They're like, but we have one specimen for you. And I was like, okay, let me see what I got. So they brought me into this other room, and they had on the table a specimen that was enormous. It had to be almost 2 feet long and about 1.5 feet deep and some 18 inches tall. And I was shocked. And I mean, it looked like there was a small boat on the table. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what could this be? And right in the center, I could see what looked like a little indentation sticking up from underneath the one level that seemed to be the continuous level of whatever the piece was. And so they did the unveiling, and I was like, oh my God, I was blown away. There was this giant green-capped tourmaline that looked very much like the blue-capped tourmalines from the Pala district in California, except this one had a vibrant green cap and the same sort of red, cherry red, pink body of the main part of the crystal. The only difference is that the green cap was a good 1/4 inch, maybe even 5/8 of an inch thick, which, you know, the crystals from the Pala district have a very thin blue cap. They are, you know, no more than a few millimeters, where this was, you know, significant. And this contrast between the two colors in the same crystal, this super deep vibrant green above this red color was just, you know, this knockout 1-2 punch. And it was sitting on this giant quartz crystal surrounded by albite and surrounded by other tourmaline crystals. And I knew right away that this was going to be an amazing specimen. And it was just now to figure out how to negotiate it with them. That was going to be the trick.
The next pocket we found was the Rocket pocket. That time I was at home and the guys from here called me and they said they hit a pocket and they already found some pieces. And I told him, okay, I'm gonna be there tomorrow morning. Close the tunnel and wait for me to take the pocket. So in the morning, I buy something in a town, and then I went to the mine. To my surprise, when I arrived in the mine, they already blasted. So I complained to the guy, how you did this? Why don't you wait me? Oh, I did it. So I told him, I want to go to the tunnel. When I get into the tunnel, a lot of smoke in it, and burned a little bit my eyes. And I was almost crying because they blew the pocket all over the floor. Jesus, I told to the guy, look what you did. So he took a bag and started to pick the pieces on the floor and put in a bag. And I couldn't say one word because I was so upset. And I have no words to describe that damage that time. I almost cried.
Shortly after the Proud Pocket came the Rocket Pocket. It was in the beginning of 2001, and the Rocket Pocket was found literally right over here. I can throw a rocket where it was, right there in that little indentation, and it came out into this cavity somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 3-4 feet. And this was my first major pocket with Pedionera that I was able to partner with them, because up until this time, the entire pockets were sold to other dealers. And I got the call, and I was told to come to Brazil right away. We've hit a pocket, and I got on a plane, and I came to look at the material. And I was flabbergasted. I mean, I was blown away. I come into this room, and my eyes, I just stood in awe, and I'll never forget this. There's a restaurant in Valadares named Carne de Panela, and I was outside and we were having dinner, and I was on my cell phone, and I was calling back to the United States, speaking with friends and family and people who I did business with, and I was literally like jumping up and down the street. You're not going to believe these tourmalines. It's just unbelievable. You don't understand what's here. There's hundreds of crystals. They're all gem. What do you mean gem? They're gem. They're gem. They're gem. They're clean. They're gem crystals. And I was just like, oh my God. I mean, the excitement was something that if I could bottle and take a sip of every once in a while, I'd be a very happy man. And so would everybody else that could take a sip. It was an awesome experience.
In the night time, the same day, we went to the place to have some beer and some food. The name of the bar is Carne de Panela. And everybody was happy to sell the pocket. I mean, made another partnership with Danielle. And Danielle called me in a corner. I want to talk to you. Okay, Danielle, what about? I think you love more those tourmalines than the other partners. I want to tell something. That pocket, we make a deal today, if it's not destroyer like this, we can make 5-6 times more. You must go to the mine and be sure you cannot do this again, because I lost money and you guys lost money too. That's the time I figured out I have to pay more attention to the pockets. I start to learn with Daniel, and he started to help us to understand how we need to take the pockets.
So there's these multifaceted terminations pointing straight up, shaped like the top of a rocket, and this phenomenon is something that happens naturally in the pockets, and there's this fibrous layer in between the pink and the outside skin or rind of the green, and when that breaks, it comes off like a sheath, and the pink center is now visible immediately to the eye, and it's not obstructed by the rind anymore, but the top of the crystal is still intact, and so what you have is what looks like a rocket. One of them, the rocket, was the most specific, it was the one that gave the namesake to the pocket because it looked so much like a rocket, and it was the highest quality of the 3 rocket crystals that were discovered. The actual reason these pieces exist is because the pocket was destroyed. Had the pocket been taken out intact, these rockets would not be rockets, and the pocket would have been named something else, I'm 100% sure. That notwithstanding, the pocket produced some of the most beautiful specimens that we'd seen up until that time. There were probably, at least still, even though there were very few matrices preserved from the collection of the pocket, there were probably about 10 or 15 matrix specimens with tourmalines repaired, oftentimes, but of this vibrant green gem tourmaline sitting on these white blades of clevelandite mixed with just a little touch of quartz and a little touch of lepidolite here. It was just really the aesthetics and the total beauty of the specimens that came out had never been seen before. But at that time in 2001, that pocket was one of the most major tourmaline pockets in the world. One of the next pockets that came up in 2001, which was about 4 or 5 months after the rocket pocket, is one of my favorite pockets, and we call it the Afghan pocket. We call it the Afghan pocket because the tourmaline that was produced from the pocket looks very much like the very light pastel tourmalines that are produced from Afghanistan, from the Logman area. And they have a very light green to and a light pink. And these were slightly more intense than that, but they were reminiscent of this sort of pastel-y color that I'd seen from Afghanistan, and so we called it the Afghan pocket. And unfortunately, the pocket was very small. The interesting thing is probably the 4 best pockets, or 4 of the nicest, most unique pockets, I won't say best because all the pockets are amazing from here, were the smaller pockets. And they can produce, even though a pocket is small, it can produce incredible material. And the Afghan pocket was a perfect example of that phenomenon. The quality was outrageous. We're talking tourmalines that reached almost 10, 12 inches. Fantastic luster. The luster from the Afghan pocket was just the best you could hope for on tourmaline. And they were gem, and it's a bicolor tourmaline. So the bottoms of the tourmalines are bright, vivid red. So the tourmaline goes from gem green to absolutely clear, and that stripe is probably 1/4 of an inch in thickness, and then it continues back to the green, and then has a distinct line and goes to the red. And so, I mean, you can lay out 100 tourmalines from pockets all around the world, and I can in 2 minutes pick out the ones from the Afghan pocket. Unfortunately, this was not a big pocket. I wish it was a huge pocket. This was, again, very reminiscent of the Afghan pocket. It was a small pocket. It was beautiful quality. It was actually the finest quality for cutting that Pedionera had produced till date. It was a blue with just a hint of green, just the right amount of green, and it was just gorgeous. And the crystals were very thick. They were somewhere in the neighborhood of probably an inch, inch and a quarter in diameter, and it was bicolor. So they started off with a reddish core for the first couple of inches, and then just went into gem blue sections. And the crystals were long. They were, you know, probably up to 15 inches. And again, this goes back to Pedionera being this wonderful variety. I mean, every pocket is different, and this pocket was phenomenal. The crystals were big, they were gem blue, they had this bicolor bottom, and they had some very little matrix in this pocket.
The big blue pocket, that time they found, I was in Denver show with Daniel. And after 2 days arrived there, I called to the mine and they told me they found a pocket. And they told me was very good material. So that time is the first time we have a lock. Those pieces was hang up in the top of the pocket. So that's why they could not break. So they took perfect because was hanging. And the only thing they must do is take like an apple. That's it.
Big blue, one of my favorite minerals in the world is this tourmaline we call big blue. I've had it up on my website. It's on Zé Menezes' card. It's been photographed for posters. It's in books. It is one of the finest tourmaline specimens in the world, bar none. It has a quality that you expect in a specimen that is a miniature, that is something 2 inch by 2 inch. You know, minerals in general for collectors are found in more perfect conditions when they're smaller. They're easier to remove. The likelihood of something being produced in a fist-sized quality in absolute perfection is much higher than something being produced in this size in that same condition. Well, big blue is a contradiction to that rule. It is absolutely perfection. There's no other way to describe it. It's a ball of white albite, about a little bit smaller than that of a soccer ball. And coming right out of the center is a tourmaline crystal that is about 6 inches across and pretty much round. So it's 6 inches diameter. And it comes straight up about 9 or 10 inches, and it perfectly flat termination, growing to the analogous pole. And when I tell you that there is not a nick, a ding, a scratch on the entire edge of this tourmaline, even that's not enough of a dramatic statement to tell you how perfect this is. And then couple that with a flat termination that has not a ripple, not a wave, nothing in it whatsoever. It is as if it was machined in a machine shop, perfectly flat, and the luster is incredible. The luster is the brightest, shiniest luster you can ever imagine. It's not gem, but it passes light just fine when it's put in a showcase on a beautiful ball of white albite blades with a little bit of lepidolite here and there, and then it has a second crystal right to the right of the main crystal, and it's slightly lower in the foreground, and it's about 1.5 inches in diameter, and has the exact same termination, is growing in the same way. So you have the larger one here and the second one right here, separated by about 5 inches, and they both show this beautiful color. I mean, it is one of the world's greatest minerals I've ever seen from anywhere. Condition, color, luster, quality, form, aesthetics, it has it all. The other amazing piece from the pocket was the wave. The wave was a specimen that was, it had to have been just near the Big Blue piece. It had to be just near Big Blue. And it was a little bit larger than Big Blue, same identical quality. The razor sharp termination, the glassy top, and the brilliance of the tourmaline was just amazing. And it, like Big Blue, grew on a mound of this incredible albite with this beautiful light pink lepidolite flowers erupting on top of the albite. And then right in the center, you had one crystal that was probably about 8 inches in diameter and about 6 or 7 inches tall, and about it was a little elongated, and it was a little bit more deep than it was wide. And the top termination from the most advantageous display angle was flat, razor sharp, and then right at the last back part, there was this wave where it came up, and it had this little secondary peak. And it's hard to see, but if you actually light that peak, it's a late stage growth of another tourmaline, and it grew right on top and continued the termination, and it's a dark, dark purple. It's like a deep indigo violet sort of color. It's really fun when you put a light on the back of it. That piece is one of the all-time great specimens that's ever been found in Pedionera, and the combination to have Big Blue in one pocket and the wave in the same pocket was just, you know, unbelievable. It's I wish we could find more pockets like that. Big Blue pocket was an amazing pocket. And the interesting thing is all the tourmalines from this pocket all grew towards the analogous pole. Most of the tourmalines I find at Pedionera are growing towards the antylogous pole, but these all grew towards the analogous pole. And we find when they grow towards the analogous pole here, they're growing much more robust, much more large, and that's what was happening here in Big Blue. This pocket was to die for. It was one of my favorite pockets. Again, it's not a big pocket, incredible quality, and just showing again the diversity of Pedionera. That was the Big Blue pocket. I wish I could find more of those, for sure.
The Grandon pocket was a green tourmaline with some matrix of quartz. That pocket, when we hit the pocket, I was in here, and I was in the beginning that pocket. So open the pocket, we make a small hole, you look inside, and you can see a lot of tourmalines in the pocket, and quartz, and everything mess.
We found, we were able to remove this pocket intact and bring out a large amount of the matrices. One piece, the name of the pocket is Grandon, which means in Portuguese or translates to like the big chief or the head honcho or the big guy, the Don, you know, and think in a mafia movie or something like this. This is the Grandon. And we removed one specimen. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'd say it's almost 3 feet across and about 2.5 to 3 feet tall originally. It's been trimmed down to lose some weight. And it's about 18 inches deep. And it's this beautiful matrix of white bladed clevelandite undulating from one side to the other. And right in the background are 3 giant gem-clean citrines, very much like the citrines in the very first pocket, or the second pocket they ever found here in Dada's tunnel, the quartz, the citrine pocket. And then in front of that are tourmalines. And there are no less than 100 gem green tourmalines, exactly the same quality as the rocket pocket, shooting out in every direction. And I mean, this specimen took 6 months to find all the pieces that went to, because it was such a large matrix and you could see all the spots, and we had all these crystals that came out from the Grandon pocket that we needed to find them and find the fits, and we did, and the result is a masterpiece. I mean, it is unique in the world of tourmalines. There's nothing else like it. It's one of the finest specimens that's ever been produced from Pedionera, and one of the finest tourmalines in the world. There were other specimens that came out, probably another 10 or 15 matrix pieces, and numerous beautiful tourmalines that were of this same type as the rocket pocket. But again, because the collecting, because our awareness and our education in the collecting process, they were much fewer repairs, retrieved and preserved in much better condition, and they're gorgeous. They're just absolutely beautiful. This pocket was enormous. It was probably somewhere in the realm of 5 meters or 15 feet in length, and at least 2 or 3 feet across and 2 or 3 feet high. And inside this pocket was an incredible amount of gorgeous blue tourmaline. But what made this pocket different was that it had not been blown into. It hadn't been destroyed. There were no fewer than 300 to 400 crystals that came out that were removed intact, unrepaired. So instead of a single crystal that's 10 inches long having 10 repairs, they have none, or 1 or 2, which made for an incredibly different look in the finished product of when we were able to put the specimens back where they grew. The pieces were dramatic, they were gem, they were beautiful, and there were lots of them. And there's a couple of my favorites from this pocket. One of my favorites from this pocket I call the smokestacks. It's a specimen about the size of what I'm showing with my arms, and it has in the center 2 giant smokestacks, about 5 inches across, growing side by side on this matrix. And then at the same time, you have these other long gem crystals shooting out in all different directions. Really one of the most impactful specimens you've ever seen from tourmaline from anywhere in the world. And it's these blue crystals on this white albite matrix with lepidolite in just all the right spots. It's really dramatic and incredible. That's the smokestacks, and that's probably my favorite specimen.
We hit the pocket and no mud inside. When you look through the hole, you can see 3 meters ahead, and you can see the tourmalines, unbelievable. So again, we started to open very carefully, and that time I take a water and spray water, and looks more nice. And we have some pictures of those pockets. We took it. And again, we spent few weeks to take that pocket. And was long crystals, some B termination, and the color was very good, kind of blue, and a lot of lepidolites. And I think we spent almost 1 month to take the whole pocket. And unbelievable, this pocket. I miss that pocket. The bicolor steel pocket was not big pocket. We hit the pocket, and I look, and I didn't see quartz in it. So I was afraid to don't have those tourmalines inside. So I started to work very carefully, and then I see one piece was perfect bicolor. I think the most beautiful piece I see in my life. And I'm very happy to be here, talk these histories to you guys, because only few persons can have an opportunity to found a specimen like this.
In 2004, Pederneiras set itself apart from just being a mine that produces incredible tourmalines to a mine that produced minerals that not only compete with tourmalines around the world, but compete with the finest minerals that have ever been found from anywhere. It had done so once before, and I would say that was the Big Blue pocket. And the Big Blue tourmaline is a specimen that rivals and can sit next to the top 20 minerals found from any find of any type around the world. Well, it did it again in 2004, and it produced what we call the bicolor steel pocket. Bicolor steel was a small pocket. It produced no more than 15 or 20 crystals entirely. And of those crystals, the matrices were well retrieved. The repairs were so few, and the matrices were so intact. It's almost like the thought that chance favors the prepared mind. They were prepared, they were ready, they found this pocket and they pulled it out. And by chance, it's the finest quality tourmaline the mine has produced, bar none. It's bicolor tourmaline. The crystals reached somewhere, I'd say the tallest crystal was about 10 or 11 inches. There's a distinct break right in the center. So 50% of the crystal grows up in an intense red. Then there is, very much like the Afghan pocket, a very clear line. And every crystal from the pocket exhibits this exact line, no matter how big or how small. Actually, I take that back. Not every crystal. Every crystal growing towards the Antilogus pole exhibits this. Every crystal from the pocket, because there were also some smaller crystals that grew with flat terminations as opposed to terminations that have small facets, those flat termination crystals are growing towards the analogous pole, and those were blue caps. So they were red with a small blue cap. And those in the pocket were actually quite small. They only reached a few inches, maybe 1.5 inches to 2. Whereas these long crystals growing to the Antilogus pole were breathtaking. And all of those crystals had this DNA trait so typical for Pederneiras to assign to a pocket, and right at the transition between the red and the blue of the top is a clear line that's about 1/4 inch thick. And it's on every crystal in the exact same spot. And so it produced this specimen that is affectionately known as bicolor steel. Bicolor steel is one of the most incredible mineral specimens I've ever had the pleasure of observing, seeing, holding, admiring, period. It sits next to the rabbit ears tourmaline, the dragon gold, the phosphophylite. It is among the finest for several reasons. First of all, it has perfection of form. The aesthetics are to die for. It has 3 crystals growing out from a central matrix, all in the perfect proportion to each other. They're not spread too far. They're not too close. They're just right. And each one of them is gem from bottom to top, and they're growing out of a contrasting matrix in just the right way. And it's incredible that this specimen, the main crystal, is actually a group of crystals. The main crystal in the center is 3. It's a tall crystal in the center with 2 sidecars, and that came off the matrix at its base in one intact piece. So they're not repaired at all through the body of the entire crystal. They are only separated from the matrix at the base and lock right on. So from a visual standpoint, you cannot see one repair in the crystal. The second crystal coming off to the right is a single crystal of the same length as the main crystal, and that comes out to the right of it at about a 30 degree to 35 degree angle off of dead on to the main group of crystals. And then coming to the left is another similar crystal that comes out on a similar angle from the main body of crystals. So what you have is this view of so many things happening at once. You have near to perfection of condition, as perfect as you can imagine. You have color, striking color, boom, boom, it just knocking you out with impact of this blue over the red with this little tiny white stripe that just sets it off just enough. And it's in the perfect aesthetic form. I mean, no one could have designed the piece any better than it is. It's a miracle. And it is one of the world's finest mineral specimens, bar none. And it is likely to be argued that it is the finest tourmaline from Pedionera by leaps and bounds. Next specimen that would compete would be Big Blue. And it is one of the top 3 or 4 tourmalines in the world, including what's been produced from Jonas, including what's been produced from Barra de Salinas, including what's been produced from Afghanistan. It stands alone. In early 2005, they found another beautiful pocket. It was actually reminiscent of the Sharon Stone and the Proud pocket. It was a bicolor pocket with not a lot of gem material, not a lot of cutting. It was beautiful in color. The 2 colors were very intense, and the matrix was a beautiful, stark white, bladed albite, different than the bluish thin blades of clevelandite that we'd seen with most pockets. They were more robust and more just stark white, and it created this fantastic backdrop for these bicolor tourmalines to be growing upon. And the best crystals ranged from 4 to 5 inches and grew both to the antylogous pole and to the analogous pole. So you had terminations with pointing terminations and lots of facets, and you had flat cut terminations, and you had them both on the same specimen at the same time, which produced this wonderful aesthetic. And there was one large specimen. It actually looked like a blue cap, and it was probably the best specimen from the find, and it was a tourmaline about 8 inches tall and about this big around, and it was a little oval shaped, so it lent to transparency and had a thick blue cap, almost a 1/4 inch of a blue cap, and it was on a beautiful white albite matrix with 2 little sidecars sort of coming at you. And the specimen was a fantastic piece. It was sold to collector Lyda Hill from Dallas, and the nice thing to know is that her entire collection, including this specimen, will be donated to the Perot Museum of Nature and Science, which is exciting because the piece is going to be on display for people to admire and visit from now until the unforeseeable future. So it's really great. It was a great piece. ...2006 was upon us, and Dada's tunnel and all the work that you see was coming to an end. The pockets were becoming less frequent. They were becoming smaller in size. There were a lot of empty pockets. We were not finding the same signs that we were finding in the earlier years here at Pedionera, and things started to slow down. And it was noticeable. And we were working very hard to find what we did find. And we had worked all the way to the end of the tunnel and back again to the front. We searched the sides. We went down. We went up. We hired geologists here in Brazil to come in and look at the mine and give us their advice. We used ground-penetrating radar, GPR, to try and ascertain where we might find pockets and follow those indications, all to no avail. We basically did everything that we could do, and our last pocket was hit in the end of 2006. There were only 2 pockets in 2006. The violet pocket, Violeta in Portuguese, and the gem blue. And the gem blue pocket was the very last pocket, and it was a small pocket. It really only had one piece. The violet pocket was a totally unique thing. It threw everybody for a loop because no one had ever seen this color before in tourmaline. I still to this day have not seen it. They are crystals that look very much the size and type of the porcupine pocket and the giant blue pocket. Instead of blue, they're a violet color. And I mean violet throughout. It's not a little bit purple. It's not, hey, it's kind of purple. It's violet color. Totally unique. And they're beautiful just the way they are with this incredible violet color on these contrasting matrix of albite and lepidolite. Very impressive and very unique. I don't know that I've ever seen this color of tourmaline in uniformity. I've seen one little piece from this mine and one little piece from that mine that has a violet or a purplish color. These are violet tourmalines, of all things. Very different, very cool. The last pocket, the end of an era, was here in 2006, somewhere in the middle of the year. And it was a very small pocket. We did not go off with a big, giant, major brouhaha. There was one small pocket found. It was the blue gem pocket, and it was found probably in September of 2006. The pocket is called the blue gem pocket because there was one blue gem of a piece inside. It is a beautiful crystal with only one lock-fit repair right at its base where it exits a beautiful little citrine crystal. And the citrine is on the albite. So you have this albite plate with beautiful blades and one crystal right in the center of citrine quartz, and right out of the center of that quartz is this blue gem. And it's near to flawless.
After that, we try in different ways. We went to the left, went to the right, went to the back. We spent about 6 months trying to find another pockets. Unfortunately, we didn't have successful. After that, we decided to stop the Dada tunnel. And I think it's the end of the era of Dada tunnel in the Pederneiras.
That was the last pocket of 2006 and the last pocket of Dada's tunnel. This incredible era of production after production, of education for us as miners and as mine owners, for mineral collectors, seeing the incredible abundance of this mine, had all just come to an end. And even though they mined here for another 6 or 7 months after that and worked very hard going in all the different directions, none of it showed any signs of what they had seen before. And until now, it seems that this mine will remain just a happy memory for many people, and through living through the examples that are out there in collections today across the world. In 1999 to 2007, I saw stuff come out of the ground that is shocking to me still to today. And it's, you know, changed the landscape for tourmaline as a collectible and for collectors around the world. I mean, Pederneiras has become probably the premier collecting locality for the species. I don't think there is another locality that has so much diversity of color, of quality, of size types, of combinations with other species and in different aesthetics, that you could collect Pederneiras all into its own. And so it's become a certain bar for the species that, you know, it's very sad to imagine that it's gone forever, which is what we thought it was. And that was why we redirected to the lower tunnel. We redirected to Gilo's tunnel because we thought if the upper tunnel is tailing out and it's going to be gone, we should redirect and see if there was anything left in the lower tunnel and see if we could maximize that and take some advantage there. So we started working there, and we started cleaning that out and abandoned this upper working, because what had happened was they came into the upper working, which was hugely productive, and there was this big gallery and room, and what we figured out later was that the concentration of the pockets was all in one zone. This is a map of the actual tunnel of Pederneiras. And in this area right here, this is the main pocket zone. There are pockets in different areas throughout, but this concentration is very indicative of the way a pegmatite would form. And that represents the displacement off of the core zone of all the elements that are necessary to form tourmaline. Unfortunately, it took Federico Pezzotta about 2 years, from 2007, 2008, and into 2009, to really understand the geology at Pederneiras. It's not very straightforward, and it was the type of thing that you needed to visit several times. It needed to be mapped.
When I came the first time here in Pederneiras, I was wondering what could be the impression of my first meeting with this extremely famous place. To tell you the truth, I was also a little bit jealous about this locality. This locality is so famous, so much tourmaline from this locality, so beautiful specimen, and many of the specimens among the world's best specimen in the mineral world. I wanted to see what was this pegmatite in this mine. And when I came here, the level of the pegmatite was exactly at the level I was expecting, something absolutely crazy. I believe that here in Pederneiras, we can see the expression, the maximum expression of geological nature, of the processes creating crystals and gems in nature.
And then we hired a geologist who works in conjunction with Federico, named Andrea Dini, to come in. And Andrea, another well-renowned pegmatite geologist, and I should say that Dr. Pezzotta is also a pegmatite geologist. So he has the specialty in this exact field. And he's studied pegmatites across Madagascar for 25 years. So he has that background that we thought would be a really key to have him on board on our team. And so with getting a professional map done of all of the workings, what existed, and getting it specifically to what is in space, you know, exactly the latitude, longitude, everything is all calculated and drawn to accuracy, combined with power washing the tunnel so that you could see the rock. They were able then to look at it very differently.
I have never seen in my life such a big pegmatite producing pockets with tourmaline crystals. This is, I believe, the major point of this pegmatite. As large are pegmatites, as complex they are. If you compare this pegmatite to some pegmatites around the world producing spodumene, producing industrial spodumene, producing industrial feldspar, producing industrial beryl, this is not a big pegmatite. There are pegmatites which are 10 times, even 100 times bigger than this one. But if you have experience around the world about the pegmatites producing cavities, pockets with beautiful tourmaline crystals, this is a monster. Many of the most famous pegmatites producing tourmaline crystals around the world are dikes, 50 centimeters thick, 1 meter thick, 2 meters thick, maybe 500 meters long. But this is a pegmatite, 10 meter, 20 meter, 30 meter thick, And the vertical development is close to 100 meters. The horizontal development may be 150, 200 meters. This is really a monster. So the size of this pegmatite is what makes this pegmatite rather unique.
I'd say in early 2013, we determined that what we had was a pegmatite that we hadn't totally taken advantage of. We haven't fully exploited by any means. And what we found was that they had mined off track on a dipping trend, the miners, and gone outside the productive area into the more sterile horizontal pegmatite. So the thought process was that there was a mirror zone on the other side over here, potentially, of this whole area, which would basically be a whole new life to the mine. And the question was, is it there or isn't it there? So that's what led to our drilling campaign that began in late April, early May of 2014. And I was advised by Dr. Pizzotta and Dr. Dini to purchase and acquire a very small rig made by Atlas Copco that is called the Diamec 232, and it is a core driller that can drill core holes within a tunnel in a small area and is still able to drive 100 meters. And so we could do core samples to go 100 meters and get back the cores and look at the results to understand. We began drilling in May of 2014, and we drilled a little over 800 meters of core and pulled that out. And those core samples, it's all very important that as they're collected, they are kept exactly in their orientation. They are all numbered. They are all photographed. They are all taken in a way to give the geologist the ability to study them and understand. And if you switch core samples places, it can have a dramatic effect on the results that are studied by the geologist. And so we have to maintain a very stringent control on maintaining that the cores don't get mixed up. And this is not easy to do in a mining environment. There's a lot of hands involved. Accidents can happen. Tray can be dropped. It's complicated. But luckily, we were very successful. And when I saw the results of this machine, and I was blown away because the information that they were able to provide us, the real proof of geology. I mean, it was very black and white. It's very simple to explain to everyone. And you could literally see where the mineralization is occurring, why it's occurring, how it's related to the other workings. We were able to drill from the upper tunnel and intersect the lower tunnel that's been productive. We were able to determine that those two vertical bodies of pegmatite are two totally separate geological structures. They are unrelated to each other. You know, we produced more core in less time than we thought we were going to. And that was great. And the yield was amazing. Being displaced from family, being away from home for, you know, almost 3 months straight is difficult. And so we weren't able to complete the entire campaign in one session. We're starting the second one literally, I think in about 8 days. Today is September 13th. It's starting on September 20th. So 7 days from now. 1 week from today, they go back on site and they begin the second campaign, which will also run for probably another 60 to 80 days. And so we're excited. You know, the drilling campaign is kicking off the second one that's really going to say we're 100%. We're 99.99, now we're 100%. Plus, simultaneously, the mine's alive. It's mining. People are excited. The miners are excited because we've got this new vision and we've got this new directive, and we feel it's there. And so I believe that within the next year or year and a half, we'll be able to share a whole new series of pockets and tourmaline with the collector and gem world that people have never seen before. And that's going to be fun and exciting. And so, you know, I feel like we're on the cusp of some greatness that comes. Could we be wrong? Absolutely. I mean, mining is mining. There's no guarantees, and you work really hard to try and find what you're looking for, and you use the best common sense, science, everything that's at your disposal if you're going at it, and it could yield something wonderful and it could also disappoint. So, to be continued.
That's my optimism there. That's my conviction that God put that there for men. And the men are us, that God chose us to deliver all that's in there, and we were not going to take it all of it out. But a good part is going to come out. A good part is going to come out. So, I think like this, I don't know, but I have the hope to still see many things.